he rumbled through the ranks and had the stones to leap into the decentralized developments, both physically and literally. He's full throttle into the future at Stardust, forcing us into the fray, not just navigating, but mastering the multiverse of marketing. He's the wizard of wallet sales, the overlord of outreach, the strong man of Stardust. It's Wills.
Yo, yo, super stoked for a great show. And there's a question that I've been waiting for, Sam, and it's been on the past 3 ones, and I hope it comes up today because boy, am I psyched for it.
Dude, there's a couple of topics that are evergreen that I've just been pushing and pushing because we keep having bangers, but I'm hoping to get to it today too, my friend. Up next, despite the industry's best efforts to break his will with 300 Web3 games, he's a Spartan of Web3 gaming, and as dawn broke, Team Shrapnel recognized his prowess and snapped him up, knowing they had found a true champion. From pulling off 360s on the slopes to 360 no scopes. In the Nuketown of Web3, he's been snatching dubs from the jaws of defeat. Welcome to the panel, the sharpshooter of Shrapnel, the undisputed king of controllers, live from the karaoke lounge in Brussels, where apparently everybody's getting the shit kicked out of them. The redemption arc continues with Dub.
Dude, freaking great to be here. I'm in an elevator. Hopefully this thing works, but you never know. We live a life. Let's do it.
Dub, arguably having the best time of anybody in Web3 gaming right now. Up next, this formidable figure has left the firehouse to fan the flames of fortune, setting the financial world ablaze with his fiery flair. This fearless force of fiscal fortitude is the guy who can turn a budget into a bonfire, make cash flow like lava. Representing the marketing marvel uptick, it's the mastermind with the Midas touch, the fantastic, the formidable Jerry Fresco Singer.
Yo, I think we should all be more like Dub, dude. Have you ever heard this guy not be euphoric at any point? Like, this guy's impervious to bear markets, man. Be like Dub.
I think I saw Dub sad one time, and it was because he was so sleep deprived that he wasn't any longer available or capable of emotions outside of just sheer apathy towards the world. That was the only time. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for the powerhouse of perseverance and peak performance. This prodigious panelist is the paragon of precision. He's not just an entrepreneur, he's a perpetual pioneer, propelling businesses to unparalleled prominence. From scaling sheer cliffs to scaling startups, he's perpetually pushing the boundaries of possibilities and prowess. And with a portfolio packed with phenomenal feats, this perceptive prodigy has piloted more projects than he's had days on this earth. So hold on to your harnesses and prepare for a paradigm shift, because here comes the prime purveyor of progress, the prince of product and parallel, and also the guy that I was playing a terrible co-op game with last Wednesday. It's Koji Nagata.
What's up, guys? I'm also a coward because I left and fled to London because I didn't want to get beat up in the streets. So thanks for having me.
We'll learn to forgive you in time, or at least everybody with Dub will. Sinjin missing from the audience as well. Somebody can ping Sinjin. I would love to get him here. It's episode 75, man. Sinjin can't miss this one. Up next, this demigod of digital domains has one hand on the marketing mantle and the other one gripping the helm of his latest conquest, King of Destiny. He's the supreme strategist behind the Infinigods, the pantheon of pixels, and with every swipe and tap, he's crafting legends and forging fates. His campaigns are as thunderous as Thor's hammer and as cunning as Loki's tricks. Bow down and bear witness to the marketing marvel whose vision reaches beyond the mortal coil. He's the Odin of outreach, the Apollo of advertising. It's Bry DeSanto.
Yo, what's up, guys? Good to be here amongst legends and friends for number 75. It's been a minute, but I have to give a big shout out to Lems on the big mint out of the Lizard Launchpad NFT. Well done, guys. You'll love to see it.
Congratulations, my friends. Always great to see another mint out. And up next, brace yourselves for a whirlwind of wit and wizardry. Our next guest is the charismatic chieftain who mastered the mythical marketplace of Magic Eden. This RuneScape enthusiast who has spent countless hours mining, crafting, and slaying his way to glory in Gielnor. And this is the architect behind the rise of Soar and 11 esports. He's built esports champions from the ground up, turning raw talent into polished professionals. He's the emperor of esports, the maven of Magic Eden. It's Knock.
Yo, what's up? It's a good day. New RuneScape quest just dropped. Girlfriend just brewed me a potion to clear my congestion and gamified number 75. It's going to be a good one.
Just brewed you a potion. We could all be so lucky, my friend. Congratulations. Up next, Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be snowed under by the avalanche of awesomeness that is our next guest. He's hailing from the balmy Bay Area where he's smashing life's milestones, having just met his wife, bought a house, and welcomed a kiddo all in just the last 4 years. But don't be fooled by the warm, fuzzy backstory. This guy's got a frosty side. From managing streamers back in the day on Justin TV to crushing it at Electronic Arts, he's now the head honcho of gaming at Avalanche, where he's turning the icy tundra of Web3 gaming into a blizzard of brilliance. He's the snowman of strategy, the cool king of the cold front, the architect of Avalanche. It's Ed Chang.
Hello. Great to be here. Congratulations on 75 episodes. It is a warm summer day. There are plenty of games to play. And Canada is apparently good at soccer, huh?
Who knew, except for maybe Knock, he will probably pretend to have known the entire time in just a few minutes, I'm sure.
Hey. I tweeted about not knowing, all right?
Would you rather take home the Copa America or the Stanley Cup, Knock?
Well, I'm a Devils fan, so I don't really give a shit if Canadian team wins the cup, to be honest with you.
You're a Devils fan? What the fuck?
Yeah, dude.
I grew up in
we got to talk about that. What the fuck?
That's wild, dude. That's wild. Revelations already on episode 75. And last but not least, whether he's scuttling through the latest hot topics or basking in the spotlight of our stage, this reptilian regular is always a step ahead. Weighing in at 2.4 pounds, he's the littlest legend who leaves a Godzilla-sized impression. It's my co-host with the most. It's Lems.
GM, everyone. Thanks for the shout out, Bri. It's been a stressful 24 to 36 hours, I will say, on a mint, as I'm sure everyone here can relate. But for anyone who did mint one, you can go reveal your thing right now, and you can see why you can now LARP as a lizard.
Yeah, the lizard suit art was revealed to me a couple of days ago. I loved it. I think it's great. Congratulations again, guys. Excited for you. And of course, get ready for a ride down the coolest, most colossal slope in the blockchain universe with Avalanche, the official blockchain of Gamified. With speed that leaves lightning in the dust and security so tight even a Yeti couldn't break through, it's pretty compelling. But here's the frosty cherry on top. Avalanche is onboarding the biggest names, known to the masses, and knowing that the masses will follow, Konami, Solo Leveling, Off the Grid, and Maple Story are all building on their own subnets, with RoboKaiden launching on Elixir in July. More is sure to follow. I actually got access to RoboKaiden. It's friggin' sweet. It's like Fortnite meets Overwatch, which is a sick combination. And of course, prepare for the Thunderdome of tactical turmoil, where every bullet blazes a trail of triumph. Shrapnel isn't just rewriting the rulebook, it's blowing it to bits with explosive excitement and fiery ferocity. This extraction shooter is a blast of brilliance, demolishing the competition with its unmatched intensity. Plus, it's your portal to pay loads of prizes with monthly STXs back on the menu. Pair your gameplay with the Shrap token or an operator, unlock next level opportunities. Huge thank you to Shrapnel for being the official game of Gamified, which is powered by none other than Stardust. Strap in, because Stardust is here to light up the digital cosmos with its wallets as a service offering. This isn't just a tech marvel, it's a sorcery of simplicity that melts away the madness of managing digital assets, making every user's experience smoother than silk-wrapped spaceships. We're not just talking about mere convenience, this is a revolution in the palm of your hand, turning your game from a mere twinkle in the sky to a blazing supernova with just a tap. It's like having a magic wand for your game's success. Just point and prosper. Big thanks to our stellar sponsor, Stardust, the official infrastructure of Gamified. I got word that Mr. Sinjin is down bad. He said he's been awake for 48 consecutive hours working on the next release of Meiji, so he might not be able to make it. If he was here, it probably wouldn't be coherent. I don't know if everybody would actually be able to make out what he was saying. So maybe it's better that we let the man get some sleep. But we move on. What's the word? We're jumping in with the finals, struggling to retain players. This was one of the biggest game releases I've personally ever seen. The finals peaked at over 250,000 CCU upon its launch last year. That's concurrent users. And hit over 10 million unique players, but struggled to retain an audience in the long term. When I say biggest release, I'm talking about from the scale of their marketing budget more than I am from the scale of their adoption, because it wasn't ever really adopted very well. If you look at its active player chart, it looks like it's basically the most recent gaming token launches. It's down bad, and despite that, its incredibly deep marketing budget, which repeatedly organized the biggest streamers in the world for tournaments, it's just slowly trickling to its demise. So my question for the panel, what's the word for the finals? One of the biggest Web 2 releases that I've ever seen, just absolutely bleeding and dripping to zero. Dub, I'm going to tag you in first.
Yeah, dude, good game is not enough is the word for me. Like, holy smokes, I did not expect the finals to be seeing the struggles they're seeing now. I mean, they even had Discord Quest going. We were actively playing it. I mean, it seems like they couldn't find a game mode that was fun and sticky for everyone. That's why they're trying 3 or 5 different game modes now, and it's just too bad. And they have crazy good cosmetics, crazy good game, and it's still not enough. So it's pretty wild.
Sad to hear it. I assumed you would have played it, so it's good to get that validation. Knock, over to you.
Yeah, I think the word here is expected. Just in the last couple of years, Spellbreak, Rumbleverse, Hyperscape. Can't even remember the name of the fucking game. These are all games that like came out of nowhere, exploded, and then shortly afterwards died. I think it's a reminder that getting users and getting to the top of those stream numbers, whether that be on Twitch or YouTube, wherever it might be, is step one, and frankly, probably the easiest part. The really tricky part is competing with something like a Fortnite, a Call of Duty, or something else that is within that shooter genre for a long period of time, or any of your respective genres. So for me, this is expected. It's unfortunate. It's another game in a long list of games that came out of nowhere, had the attention of basically every streamer on the planet for a short period of time, but ultimately was unable to capture that audience for long term.
Crazy to me that they just couldn't do it, man. Every time I felt like I booted up Twitch, I just saw another 40 major streamers playing it, and it looks beautiful. Jerry, over to you.
Yeah, I think that obviously there was people being paid to do that, and when you stop paying them, they just go back and play COD. And I think there was no real like it's just like a skin cosmetic driven game really for like their retention hooks, and that's fun for a little bit, but then next on comes like the next pretty little thing, X Defiant, right? And you see that player base I think really start to drop off as another game in the same genre, they start to pay their streamers, right? So they've gone from the finals to back to COD. Now they're playing X Defiant, right? So this, like Knox said, you can have the money to get the people in there, but if you don't have any way to retain them, you're inevitably just going to die this like really slow, sad death. I think a lot of us did see this coming. I think we talked about it at one point because I remember people disagreeing with me, and once again, I am right.
God damn it. Jerry and Knock both only talking about their good receipts that they
Hey,
definitely
dude,
want everybody to track all the
I
time, but never bringing up the probably garbage fire that's left in their wake of all the bad takes they've had over the years. Name a more iconic duo. Koji, over to you.
I think the word is one hit wonder, and that's not to say that this game is bad or it's only one note, but like we see this kind of stuff in other industries too. There's all kinds of music, especially, which is why I say one hit wonder. You see people who have a song that's all over the radio. It's a song of the summer. It's like the greatest thing anyone's ever heard. Everyone's listening to it, and by the time that summer's over, they you can barely name the artist, let alone the song, and the album is toast. And so I think that like getting attention and getting people to play, like Knox said, might be while very difficult, might be the easiest part. Keeping those people around is another thing entirely, and making sure that you have the right retention is super key, but also impossible to predict because sometimes you need some of that zeitgeist. You see these games like Dark and Darker at one point was on the top of the Steam charts before it got taken down. Whatever. I mean, there are games that come and go, but like uh, even if the numbers are good at the outset, it's longevity that matters.
Ah, dude, Dark and Darker, a great callback. Actually, I wonder if they have a new release coming up. They were, every time they hit a playtest, absolutely massive. And actually, in contrast, I don't think they were paying too many streamers for that one, but a pretty unique take. Wills from Stardust, over to you.
Word from me is Wasted 1.0. I remember hearing about this game in like November, September when it was running in the beta stages. I'm not big on the streaming side, so I might have missed it from that end. But that's when all my buddies were telling me to get the beta, download the beta, check it out. I never ended up doing it, but looking at the chart right now on Steam DB, and it's funny to compare it to Helldivers, which is a similar game that had a real spark in popularity and then just slowly straight back down. From its initial release, the finals has only gone down. There have been little upticks around the modes, but this is what you get when you poorly time a 1.0 release, and you get people interested in the beta, interested in the prospect, and then when you pull away the curtain and show them everything you've got, and people realize what it is. I don't remember any of my buddies telling me to get onto the finals 1.0 release. I think it was after the beta came out, and they didn't have much else to show. I think everybody was like, well, all right, on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. If it doesn't have that word of mouth, which, in contrast, of course, not to brag from Web3 whenever we don't have that many users and that many success cases, but I have seen the word of mouth of Fableborn absolutely fucking everywhere in the past week. And it's been really cool to see people excitedly being like, oh, I'm at this level. Oh, you should download it. Oh, it's just cool to see. Brad DeSanto, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. My word was going to be hype. I think you see this a lot in Web3 and in crypto Twitter as well. You see things kind of come out of absolutely nowhere, explode on the back of paid marketing, influencers, streamers. It's all a concentrated marketing push, but you get nothing before or after that. I think it's a telltale sign of a game that doesn't have a true community or any organic word of mouth. So for me, I agree with Knock and everybody. It's not surprising. It's unfortunate, but we see it time and time again. I would also say I am definitely not the target audience. I'm not a streamer. I don't watch Twitch. I think it's telling that I did not see anything about this game on any of my social media platforms, be it Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere at all. So I think also just the fact that, and again, I'm one person, but the fact that they weren't able to break out of that echo chamber at all, into sort of the periphery of gaming, also I think speaks volumes about the legs that it had or lack thereof.
Great takes across the board there, Brad DeSanto. Also realizing I completely missed the topic or the game mode, which is what's the word. Sorry for not holding you guys accountable on that one. We're gonna lock in after this. Knock, I'll give you the last word, then we move on.
Yeah, I think Bry hit it right at the end there. This is like a reminder of how risky it is to sort of you kind of live and die by paid Twitch streamers, right? When you pay somebody, you are changing a value equation that they have in their mind, which is if I'm not playing my core game, which is what my audience wants to see, I need to get paid a shitload of money to play anything else. When you meet that equation and you pay them a shitload of money and you make it worth it for them to play that game, well, you've also kind of you've tied yourself to that valuation. And once you stop paying them that amount of money, their audience doesn't necessarily want to watch the finals. They want to watch their favorite streamer. And that streamer will then go back to whatever game their core audience wants to see being played. And if you haven't built a strong community, you're going to disappear just as fast as you appeared to begin with. We've seen this hundreds of times over the last couple of years with games on Twitch. If you look at the Twitch charts, it's literally like scattered with a number of games that appeared, popped up for 2 or 3 weeks, topped the charts, disappeared. Nobody ever fucking played them again. Among Us is one of those games that just came out of nowhere and then died right away. I think it's a reminder that you need to build a core community before you do anything like this. And if you go paid only, yeah, you might have some success in the short term, but you don't have a community to be that anchor once the paid influencers go away.
Real quick double click, Knock. I want to send it back to you and ask if you're in a first person shooter game like Shrapnel, like Off the Grid, and so many others, how do you break through whenever the incumbents are so strong here, man?
Yeah, so for me, it's twofold, right? I think the shooter games that have had a lot of success over the last little while have honed in on one or two key pieces, two components of shooter games that exist that are major pain points for players. So for a game like Shrapnel, you're playing an extraction shooter. Well, the only real mega popular extraction shooter today has a massive barrier to entry in the fact that it's Escape to Tarkov. It's incredibly hardcore. It's very difficult. So they've cornered a niche. There's obvious interest for this type of game, this genre, and they've removed one of the biggest barriers to entry for most people who want to enter the genre, which is Tarkov is just way too fucking hardcore. If you've ever played that game, you are stressed out the entire time. Whereas when you're playing Shrapnel, you still get all of the excitement of the extraction shooter, but it's way less risky. It's way more fun. It's high action. It's high impact. It's not waiting around for 45 minutes. So if you're a shooter, you almost have to target one or two components from things that already exist, lean into it, make sure that you can break down some of the barriers and the problems that people have with the incumbents, and you might carve off a small component of their audience, but their audiences are so massive that even a small portion of those users are massively impactful for you, your game, your business. That's the way that I think you would approach it. And then the second piece is you have to be cognizant of the fact that no, you are not a direct competitor to the incumbents. Nobody here, nobody anywhere is going to build a game that is a direct competitor to Fortnite, because that game is so massive. It has a center of gravity that is just so large that doing that is just painting you in a bad light. People are going to be like, this is meant to compete with Fortnite. This is meant to be the Fortnite killer. You're already putting these lofty expectations of a game, and you're not allowing users to come in, get a sense for what the game is, and make that decision themselves. So I think it's carving off a piece from the incumbents and making sure that you're just broadcasting your game for what it is, a fun game. It doesn't need to be a incumbent killer.
Great stuff, Knock. Ed Chang, tagging you in, brother.
Yeah, I think just to chime in on what Knox, I think the other piece is like it speaks to like the expectations of the player base today, right? Because I think games like Fortnite really kind of pioneered this idea of like a triple A, first person shooter type game with this live services, just like this, always these battle pass, like the new sets of content coming out. I worked at EA when Apex came out, and it just absolutely blew up with kind of the streamer strategy they used, right? And then tons of people were playing with it, and then they got bored, right? Because it was only pubs. They're dealing with like hackers. There's only one map, and then it just got kind of vanilla for everybody. And the problem is, as a studio, even a studio backed by or owned by EA, is that you're spending so much time keeping the servers up, like dealing with customer support and anti-cheat and all that kind of stuff. And it's just you're kind of trying to balance the expectations of always coming up with new content, because that's the expectation these days, right? And it's just really hard. Going back to the Twitch rankings, like I think the last new game that came out that's consistently in the top like 5 is, off the top of my head, probably Valorant, right? Everything else comes and goes, and it's that hard. And when I think about kind of the Web3 gaming space, there are some really hyped, really awesome, fun games that we're all extremely bullish on coming out. And I just hope that if some of these don't hit the projections that people think it will, it's not a failure of the Web3 industry or the studio itself. It's just really hard to build a great game, and one that has longevity.
Great stuff, Ed. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. Over 90% of games fail to even make back the money that it costs to develop them in Web 2. So we can't necessarily hold Web 3 games to a higher standard whenever they have to also deal with the legal and technological challenges of this space on top of everything else. We should expect that number that of failure rate to be even higher, unfortunately, even though I would like it for it not to be the case. We're going to move on. NFTs apparently are not dead, at least according to Dapp Radar. NFT trading volume is at a 1-year high, and tokens are struggling significantly. Are we rotating back to NFTs, or is this a case of misleading data? Dapp Radar reports that, quote, the NFT market has maintained its bullish trajectory in Q2 2024. They recorded $4 billion in NFT trading volume and almost 15 million NFT sales across Q2 2024. My question for the panel, over under those numbers for Q3 2024, are we going to have more than $4 billion in NFT trades and 15 million NFT sales, or under that number? Let's send it over to Koji first.
The answer is over. I mean, have you seen the socks? I'll let Knock talk about them later because I know he's going to tell me how great it all is, but like it's definitely over.
Over because you got a pair of Arbitrum socks? Am I reading into this correctly, Koji? Would you like to? We're just going to leave us with that?
Arbitrum? Come on, Sam. Get your finger on the pulse. You gotta follow Yuga a little closer, my guy.
Okay, Basie socks. Okay, I don't know what's going on over there in Belgium. Apparently, people are getting the shit kicked out of them, and socks are going to the moon. Knock, over to you.
The socks are news to me, but I'm gonna say under for the sheer reason that I think a lot of that data is probably inflated. There was some like pretty rampant on most marketplaces in Q2 wash trading issues that I think Dapp Radar is probably reporting as legitimate NFT volume. The NFT market by and large is has been quite quiet for the last little while, and I think that this is pretty true across the board for the crypto ecosystem altogether. So I don't think that this is an indication that NFTs are going to continue to be slow. I think it's a broader indication of like the macroeconomic conditions that we're in when you're talking about the crypto market as a whole. But yeah, I would say that that data is almost certainly inaccurate.
All right, Knock takes the under. Jerry, do you?
Yeah, also going to take the under. I agree with everything Knox said about those numbers being inflated, so I'll skip past that. I think Dapp Radar as a whole always tends to overinflate numbers, but I also think Q3 is just generally a slow time for games, right? And so, maybe I'm viewing it too much through the gaming lens, um, but I think things will pick up in Q4. I think especially as the narrative from people like Spark and Hunter have been putting out a couple really good tweets of NFTs being essentially token vouchers. I think as that narrative picks up steam, you'll see NFTs start to perform really well. So keep bull posting, you guys, and take us to the promised land.
Let's send it over to Lady Trader Ra, who's joining us from the audience as well. Lady, are you taking the over the under on NFT volume and amount of total transactions, I guess?
Thank you so much for having me up here. This is my first time joining this space. Is really great to be here. And I've been listening to all of the opinions. NFT, I think we are just getting started, right? We are just coming out of the bear markets, really. And I think NFTs are going to play a very important role as we get into the bull run more and more. Because I follow historical data, by the way, so I have followed cycles previously on Bitcoin, and my community has done the same thing this time around. We've been holding Bitcoin since November of 2022 and being very, very patient about how everything is going, and obviously shopping whenever we see an opportunity. I think that NFT is one of those things that really bridges the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. So I would like to see more and more Web 2 companies joining Web 3 through those NFTs. And I think volume is going to start coming in to the NFT, but then also gaming sector of blockchain, right? Because right now gaming tokens are not doing really well. But I think that creates a really awesome opportunity for those of us who are actually trying to buy and add to our position. So really exciting times. I think right now NFT markets are going to get better. And this is the time that we shop.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. Let's send it over to Ed Chang next.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comparison of the date that they compared it to, like the second highest quarter since like 2023. Because I actually looked back, and in May of 2022, OpenSea was doing $150 million a day in transaction volume, and
Holy.
so everything is like a rounding error compared to like that Mount Everest, right? But I think as long as blockchain is around, like NFTs are going to be a thing. The question is, what is that thing? I mean, I think everyone can say kind of the NFTs as most people know them, which is Top Shot, Bored Apes, CryptoPunks. Seem like it's going to be a very long time, if they ever get back to close to where they were. However, you got gaming NFTs coming, you've got NFT ticketing, you've got RWA. So I think that will evolve. But I think the NFTs as the greater, public knows them is kind of laughed at these days, and I think it's the PFP meta seems pretty dead right now.
Unfortunate as that may be, I've got a little bit of more context on the socks thing. Okay, yeah, apparently Bored Ape Yacht Club have token gated socks that they're giving away at at ECC, which we'll see if that revives their PFP prices. Brian DeSanto, over to you, man.
I am not bullish on socks, but I'm going to take the over on NFT volume. And I think Jerry hit it spot on. My prediction is we see a big shift away from KOL rounds and token pre-sales, and we see it shift into NFTs as token vouchers. I think one amazing example is the Beacon, what they did with their rite of passage mint, executed it flawlessly, tied to a gameplay experience. But I think you're going to see more and more of that behavior. You're going to see it with Pudgies. You're going to see it with Azuki, sort of as those large cap PFPs. So I'm looking specifically at what legacy collections have the balls and the legal sort of runway, heading into the election, the regulatory climate is improving, to go the token route and drive value into their collections. And then, of course, I think gaming will be a huge beneficiary for the quality projects that have not yet launched the token. And I think, as a benefit, hopefully to holders, I think we'll see those airdrop percentages start to shift up, as the meta moves. So that's my bullish take. And I think, as the climate improves, I think we'll see more and more of that.
Thanks, Brad. Dub, you taking the over or the under on the next quarter of NFT transactions?
Bro, over for sure. NFTs are going to be freaking cooking compared to tokens, especially going into Q4, Q1. Easy's looking at me like I'm freaking crazy, but I know I'm right. There's so many indie collections out there right now that are doing pre-mints and are right now sitting at like a 0.05 to a 0.1 ETH floor, and especially in the gaming space. And I think there's just hundreds of these that are just sleeping giants ready to take over as tokens take a negative narrative in this space.
Interesting to hear that from you. John from BR1 Infinite joining us from the audience as well. Over to you, man. You taking the over or the under? $4 billion in transactions, 15 million total transactions for Q3.
It's a tough sell. But you got to look at the narrative of the Web3 space over the last 3 years to really come to, a real conclusion. NFTs were the meta. Now it's coins that are the meta. And I think the difference between the two are that people really flocked towards the first thing that we had available, which was NFTs. And the problem with those was that community was a hindering factor, not a strength. And the lack of liquidity on NFTs was also not the best thing to have in that kind of technology. Coins came out, fixed both of those problems. I don't need community. I've got ample liquidity. I can get in and get out at my leisure. And we all came here to make money, which is kind of unfortunate. That's what this whole space was built off of originally. But technologically speaking, I think we're going to be over. And the reason why I say over is because NFTs had a reason to exist. The reason was that you own a piece of a digital asset, and it's going to come back with a day of reckoning. And I think it's going to be based off of utility. I think if you really zoom the lens out and see why we are where we are, the next step is utility. Video games have utility. Being able to own assets like tickets to an event, things that matter, where your ownership matters, and the community will be based off of not the NFT going towards building community, but rather community having NFTs to back them, right? And people may not know what NFTs are by the end of that. In the BR1 world, we've stayed away from the NFT verbiage. We stick to owning characters, owning weapons, owning loot boxes, and the Web2 community is going to build off of that. And they won't know that behind the scenes of what they own, it's an NFT, but rather they own a thing, and they own something in a community that they really care about.
Great stuff. Let's send it over to Knock, and then we also have Jonah coming up. Jonah, I'd love to hear your opinion on NFT volume going forward, but we're going to send it to Knock first.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if Dapp Radar was including ordinals in that total volume of NFTs in Q2. Ordinals is a relatively new tech on a very tribalistic blockchain with a bunch of people who have more money than God on the sideline for like the better portion of the last decade. So ordinals have been in a let's mint absolutely fucking anything all the time whenever they go live sort of eco mentality for the better portion of 24 and a little bit in the end of 23. So I'm curious to see how much of that weighted average that Dapp Radar is reporting is attributed to the ordinals ecosystem. I think that there's a lot of really interesting things going on in ordinals from like a technical perspective. And then just on a side note, one of the things that does give me hope for maybe not Q3, but talk to a couple of games who are looking at implementing 404s later on in Q4 and into 2025. That's a really interesting path for NFTs because it increases the amount of liquidity within the ecosystem. It allows for fractionalized ownership. It allows for really cool things to happen within the NFT ecosystem itself. So I think when we do see NFTs take off in a much bigger sense again, it'll look a little bit different than just the standard PFP that we saw a lot of the time through 21 up until mid 23.
All right, TCAF in the audience says crypto dick butts is pumping again. NFT number is going to soar the over on Q3. And then he also follows it up with the greatest utility on earth is social status and personal clout, jealousy and greed. My hot take is PFPs come back with a vengeance. That would be a wild story arc to follow. Jonah, tagging you in for the last word on this one before we move on, brother.
The over/under on NFTs superseding tokens is the
Yeah, so we have some
bet.
specific metrics here. Dapp Radar says in Q2 we had $4 billion worth of volume and 15 million total transactions on the NFT market. Curious if you think Q3 will be over under.
That's actually surprising. Where is that volume mostly coming from? Does it say?
It does not say in the data that I have in front of me. I might be able to follow up in a little bit with it.
I mean, I'm known to start shit, so fuck it. I'll say it. I believe in Dapp Radar's data as much as I believe in the Tooth Fairy.
All right. And do you believe the Tooth Fairy will report higher numbers or lower numbers?
I think the
next
Tooth
quarter?
Fairy will report whatever investors like to hear.
All right, fair enough. Actually, I am seeing here, I do have Runestone on there, which I believe is an Ordinals or a Runes collection. So that should answer Knox's question from earlier. Bored Ape Yacht Club, Runestone, Pudgy Penguins, Mutant Ape Yacht Club, and Fantasy Top, they have reported as the top 5 NFT collections. Let's move on, though. I want to ask you guys another over-under. Gamers in China are spending way, way, way more monthly than gamers in the USA. Shout out to Exola for this data. Gamers in China are spending $120 per month versus gamers in the US spending $58 per month. On top of that, we have obviously in the US a significantly smaller population than China. I believe it's about 1/3. So is it the case that China is actually the real tier 1 country with the US spending less than 50% on average of what they're spending? And my question for the panel is over under China gamers spending even more than 2x. Will this number inflate or deflate? Let's send it to Koji, then we'll go to Jonah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, wild that Sam is talking about China being tier 1 so close to July 4th. I don't know how you Americans feel about that, but like, I take that as an offense. I mean, yeah, who are we kidding? More people, more seemingly more disposable income. Of course, it's like the holy grail, but it's like a completely different beast. Anyone who's speaking on this space, maybe Sinjin aside, has no idea what the fuck they're doing in Asia. So like, and ourselves included, like we're trying to break in too, but it's just like it's a completely different animal. I think that like the only people that are really going to succeed there, at least at first, are the people from there building there, because that audience wants something different than what we're willing to give them.
I'm curious if other people feel this way as well, but I always figured the games were kind of like a universal language and that a game in one region would do well in another region. But then I try to play something like Genshin Impact and just have the worst time of my entire life, or like how much I absolutely hated Night Crows and thought it was garbage, but apparently it's doing great. And I realized how different and geo specific you have to cater the game to the audience.
Exactly. Those titles, exactly. I've tried to play all those games too, and I just can't.
Yeah, it's just not a fun experience for me, which I feel bad about. Jonah, over to you.
Yeah, complete blasphemy that you said that you compared Genshin Impact to Night Crows. I would say that they are not in the same sphere of the universe in any way possible. You know, I think you just have a waifu issue because there's a lot of Americans that like Genshin as much as the Chinese. But I would say that interesting story over the last few weeks. There actually, I think it's tier 1 is the org. Funny enough, but Faker, who's one of the best League of Legends players in the world, if not the best by far, he has a honorary Hall of Fame skin that's selling for I think $500. And a lot of League of Legends players in the U.S. did a boycott over that particular hero. What they would do in League of Legends is they would ban the hero in each match. So the idea is like, well, why would you buy a $500 skin? Because you're never going to play as that character in the game. And it actually somewhat worked in America, and it briefly worked in China for like a week, and then nobody gave a fuck. And yeah, they made $2.5 million in a day, and they're still making a ton of money on it. So, and most of those sales are coming from Asia. So yeah, yeah, yes.
Yes, Asia wins again. I will say, fair point. Genshin Impact and Nightcrow shouldn't be said in the same sentence. Those are just probably the last two primarily Asian titles that I played, and I had about equally as bad of an experience playing both of them. So it shows that despite how much money they spent or how popular the game is, I still just, I don't know, I guess I need things to be crafted for my Western tastes, unfortunately. Will's from Stardust, over to you.
Let's go, Sam. This is the question I've been waiting for. So funnily enough, when looking into this, I actually found out that in China in 2000, from 2000 to 2015, there was a ban on consoles throughout China. So no Xbox, no PlayStation. So Chinese gamers were primarily playing on PC. And what this resulted in was just a rise in free to play gaming. The majority of games in China are free to play. So it's much more along the lines of the Fortnite models that we've been seeing pop up the past sort of 10 years in the West. So I think it's a matter of culture, really, and gaming culture, so to speak. I think that in America, at least in my personal experience in the West generally, there's this antagonism towards pay to win. And when you're playing with your buddies, you don't want to be the guy that shelled out $20 to get the thing. You there's this culture of you have to earn for it, whereas in I think the stat that I got was 24% of gamers in like China, South Korea, Japan, they've all bought items to gain a competitive advantage over people they play against. I don't remember the last time I bought a non-cosmetic item in a game, because to me that would just feel wrong. So I think that's a large part of it as well. I think it also has to do with the Asian game mechanics of like gacha, for example, and gambling game mechanics built into games. Those are all a lot more popular within sort of Asian titles like Genshin, and we've started to see them come over to the West as well. So they're all designed to make you spend more for a continuous amount of time. Whereas in the West over here, we have this idea of you pay $60 for a game and that's it. So I think that's going to really be the limiting factor. So I'm going to say over 2x.
Yeah, it's interesting, Will's. Great stuff across the board there. But I found it really interesting that the U.S. spending was $58 per month, because it basically equates to buying like one new console game per month, almost exactly, which is really interesting.
They're tapped into my credit card.
Yeah, exactly. Yap also says different mentality.
That actually went all the Roblox skins, by the way, not to new games.
I'm sorry, one more time, Jonah.
That went to Roblox skins, not to new games. That's where the $58 went.
Still equals apparently the same amount regardless. Yap says different mentality. You'll probably never understand why they like what they like. Yeah, fair enough. I will always remember the first time World of Warcraft introduced a paid mount that you could buy. It was called like the Celestial Horse or something. It was see-through, basically like a Pegasus or whatever. And to Will's point, whenever people would see people riding around on those, it was actually like a badge of dishonor, like a badge of shame. People were like, "What a loser! He didn't want to just earn the mount that you can get from raiding or whatever." And you're right. In Asian cultures, it doesn't seem to be that same stigma. Let's tag in Ed Chang from Avalanche.
Yeah, I think riffing off of what Koji was saying is like, there's one thing in terms of being successful is understanding the market, like seeing what appeals to Chinese or Asian markets and versus here, right, in the West. Like, for example, Honor of Kings was like the mobile version of League, and it's just like absolutely taken over like gangbusters. And mobile League just never really took off in the Western world, right? I think even like traditional Web 2 publishers and their appetite for crypto and jumping in versus the Web 2 publishers out here in the West couldn't be more different. Another piece that I think China has just a distinct advantage is like, for those of you that don't know, is for you to actually get your IP into that market, you have to work with the publisher in that region, right? So you kind of got to play by their rules. It's like, hey, TikTok and everything else is here, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter are banned in China. It's just that's how they do business, and there's a price to be able to get into market, and that's a whole conversation in and of itself. And then in terms of the monetization, I don't know how much higher that can go, because as far as I know, like the government is also actively trying to cut down on the population's like addiction to gaming. they limit, the hours that you can play. They limit the amount that you can spend, and they have these publishers put in these checks and balances of, just gating stuff for the players. And I'm not going to comment if that's good or bad, but I do think that that's probably kind of a ceiling for monetization there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about those laws that were coming out over the past couple of years. Curious what the current status of those is. Let's send it over to Lems. I know he has some thoughts on this.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Real quick, before we go to Lems, I'm gonna let you finish. But I gotta get going. I just wanted to add real quick that like you can't discount also in Asia, much more than anywhere in the West. The commuter culture is huge, and so they spend a lot more time fucking around on their phones, if you can believe that. And so I think mobile has a lot more to do with it. But I'm gonna I gotta hop, and I feel like I'm winning the anti Sinjin award for guest who has had to leave early the most times. But thanks for having me.
Appreciate you as always, Koji. Thanks for joining us despite being all the way over in London/Belgium right now. I also wanted to say something. Ed Chang mentioned that mobile League of Legends and MOBAs in general just haven't really taken off over here. As somebody who literally played Wild Rift on my phone last night and think it's arguably better than the PC experience, that makes me so sad because MOBAs on mobile are actually fire. So if anybody wants to join me on that train, just let me know. Let's go over to Jerry.
Yeah, I don't know if the number is 2x, but I do know that like the number of gamers in China is more than like the people that identify as gamers in China alone is more than the entire population of North America, right? So I think, China itself does like 25% of global gaming revenue, and that's grown so much, but to continue to grow like 1 to 2%, we're talking about like billions of dollars. So I don't know that there's going to be any more like exponential growth from the region, especially with like population decline. And then like what Ed was saying, I think it's even a step further. Like I'm pretty sure the government of China has to grant you like permission to be able to make a game for the market, right? So like the government's even involved in what can get approved in the region and what can't, which is what makes it so hard for people to localize for China. And like the games that from the West that do go to China are just completely different fucking games, right? It's the same IP, but the game is totally different. So I think it'll continue to just like crush overall, like the rest of the world as far as like revenues and monetization. But I don't know that there's going to be huge, 10 to 15% growths from the market, year over year.
Yeah, fair play. Definitely, if you're stifling innovation and also stifling people's ability to play, doesn't speak very promisingly about growth going forward. Let's go to Lems. Sorry, Lems, I forgot I originally started with you, got distracted.
It's all right, just getting cocked over here, and then Jerry was happy to swoop in and take my place. It's okay, Jerry. I get it. But to
Sloppy
your point,
seconds.
and it actually works out because now I can disagree with you, so it's all great. Because the key data here was that it was average spend per gamer, not actually like total spend. Because I would have assumed when you normalize it across average spend per gamer, it's probably pretty similar between the US and China. That's why I was like actually surprised to see it as a 2x average. But then looking at another stat, it was like it's up like 60% in the last year too. It's just like continuing to grow. And I don't know about you guys, and this is like totally anecdotal evidence, but my gamer friends on this side of the pond are cheap as fuck, and people don't buy games, or else they just like pick things up on Steam sale and don't spend money outside of that. Whereas normalized spending in China and like in Asian markets is like way bigger. Even in mobile games, playing pay to win games, in-app transactions is way more normalized. Like I have so many friends who just they'll download a free to play game and just refuse to spend money on it, even if it's like $5 and it's something they want. They're just like, no, I refuse to spend money on in-app purchases. So just going on that anecdotally, I think we'll keep this like, gap of 2x in China versus the US unless like there's some kind of major shift here.
Jack with a great comment, following off the back of what I was saying about the World of Warcraft horse cosmetic. He said they took slash spit out of World of Warcraft because all the people were spitting on those with paid cosmetics and mounts, which is crazy. Slash spit would just basically say like insert, your character name. So it'd be like Sam spits on insert your name. That's insane that they had to remove that because they wanted to protect the bag. Over to you, Wills.
Yeah, I think Ed brought up a really interesting point that people have been talking about with the limitation of the game time, and I think we've been talking a lot about this from a publishing perspective, but from the user perspective, if we're taking this idea that culturally people are willing to spend more and willing to advance further through spending money in the game, I would argue that limiting playtime is only going to accelerate that. If you only have 2 hours a week to play a game, you're going to want to look as good as you can for those 2 hours in front of your buddies. So I think that that's one of the things that could actually skyrocket this number even further potentially.
Very interesting take. Appreciate you going against the grain there, Wills. You love to see it. And real quick, before our next topic, let's allocate a moment to applaud the almighty Avalanche, the official blockchain of Gamified. Avalanche isn't just flexing its muscles, it's with its speed and security, it's bench pressing Web3 gaming by bringing T1 Esports and the legend himself, that Jonah mentioned earlier, Faker, into Web3 gaming. They're actively altering attitudes and advancing the industry. But wait, there's another ace up their sleeves with Fableborn's new play to airdrop campaign set to astonish. So whether you're aiming for your next adventure or architecting new strategies, Avalanche is the agile engine accelerating Web3 gaming. And it's time to dive headfirst into the chaotic carnival known as Shrapnel. Imagine an extraction shooter so intense it makes a shot of Jägermeister look like a glass of water. Shrapnel is your golden ticket to the ultimate gaming glory. Enlist today, earn metal, team up with Moku, and let your strategies light up the screen like a Vegas marquee. Huge thank you to Shrapnel, the official game of Gamified. Plus, behold the backbone of Gamified, the official infrastructure you didn't know you needed, but now you can't live without. Their wallets as a service tooling is a spellbinding solution, making metaverse management a cakewalk. This invisible innovation is the kind of magic trick that makes you wonder if they got a wizard on payroll. It blends Web 2 simplicity with Web 3 sorcery, all without requiring a PhD in computer science. And with over 150 chains at your fingertips, Stardust is the ultimate custodian of your in-game treasures and the vigilant protector of your players' profits. Huge thank you to Stardust for being the official infrastructure of Gamified. We're moving on. Fact or fiction? Is co-op king? A record 799 co-op games launched on Steam in 2023, which is up 14% year over year, which is actually that seems wrong. Sorry, year over year, but it's up from 383 in 2018. So over the last 5 years, the amount of co-op games being produced has increased twofold, according to a VG Insights report. Sorry for the little confusion there. Analysts noted that co-op games are quote unquote disproportionately popular and that they accounted for just 6% of the total titles, which was 14,000 titles released on Steam last year, but they captured 36% of the total units sold on the platform. So despite being only 6% of the games, 36% of the units sold were co-op. Co-op games have the median sales of 38,000 units. For example, or for comparison, the median titles without co-op elements is only 5,000 units. And 106 co-op games have sold over 5 million units in their lifetime on Steam. Even if we look at smaller indie titles, the bottom 25% of co-op games still sell twice as well as the bottom 25% of other games. Pal World and Helldivers were two of the big heavy hitters that really drove traction of co-op games this past year. And there's been a heavy emphasis over the last decade on multiplayer and PvP games, but co-op, meaning two players can team up, seem to be absolutely taking over. So my question for the panel, true or false, is co-op king? And is this going to be something that keeps trending in this direction? I think it's absolutely insane. Lems, over to you.
I hope it continues to trend in this direction. I love co-op games, and co-op games, like, you want to play with your buddies as opposed to just playing PvP all the time. Like, this is like game nights and we hang out in a voice chat. I would much prefer to play some kind of co-op game. One of my favorite games that I co-op is Borderlands, and I haven't felt like I haven't found that sort of like spark on other games in like the last few years at all. Pal World was pretty fun, I will say, when we were playing that, and it was fun. Everyone just jumping in and playing together and progressing together. But man, like, I remember when Borderlands came out, it was just like such chaotic fun banter that you could just get on with your friends. You could play up to 4 players and run through the whole campaign. Like, bring more of that back. I would love to see more games like that, because it feels like everything is so hyper focused on PvP, competitive, which I get it. It is fun to have those competitive games, but when you want to kick back with friends, like, no one plays split screen anymore. This is the next best thing from split screen.
I just got to go back to the last topic real quick. Those were great points, Lems, but Shady Shiba absolutely threw me for a fucking loop. He says, pretty sure that Horse Mountain World of Warcraft also outsold StarCraft 2's expansion or something like that, which has a StarCraft 2 maxi. Absolutely stabs me in the gut, but great topic nonetheless. Jerry had the hand up next. Over to you, brother.
Yeah, I think co-op games are gonna continue to do well, right? When we've talked about a lot of games here, but we've talked a lot about Helldivers, we've talked a lot about Power World. We haven't talked about Unchained or Chained Together or whatever it's called. But like they're all co-op games, and they're all like co-op games are perfect for the way people consume content in 2024, right? Which is fucking TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. And these games are built for that funny moment where you're playing with your friends or you're playing with another streamer and you guys are just both bullshitting around. The streamers love it because they're getting to like in a way like double their viewership because you're probably playing with other people who are streaming. So they're growing. So they want to continue to play these types of games. They want to continue to make these 30 to 60-second clips of games to put on socials because that's nobody's growing on Twitch, right? You're growing on TikTok and then you're transitioning that to Twitch. And like some of the best games of the last few years have been co-op games, right? It Takes Two, Overcooked, the three I just talked about. But but yeah, I got a phone call. Untangled was like the best $6 I ever spent on a game. So I think co-op has so much room to run, and it's just it's really accessible. They tend to be cheaper, so they're like paid titles, but they're anywhere from like $5 to $25, and you can have endless amounts of fun with them. Like Sam, I saw you make a comment the other day about how you're having. I'm not going to name the game, but like you said, I'm having fun playing this game with my friends, and I was like, yeah, I have fun. I can have fun playing any game with my friends. We could be playing fucking Go Fish with a deck of cards. I'm gonna have fun with my friends, right? And these games are built to be played with your friends, and so I think that they have that solve for retention because you're having a lot of fucking fun doing it, and you want to come back and you want to play and have those moments with your friends, every night.
Yeah, I think the thing about it too is that it has a built-in marketing campaign, right? It is built in, forcing you to basically like extend word of mouth, even before you play the game. A lot of the time, like Koji and I bought this game. It was the predecessor to It Takes Two, and we literally were just like, I don't know, man, it looks cool. Let's buy it together and both play it. And like, bam, two copies sold instead of one. If one of us just wanted to try it, and I'd never heard of it before. He just found it. I think it also reminds me of Payday, the very first version of Payday, which is a bank heist game that was not PvP. It was co-op up to 4 players. Literally, whenever you bought it on Steam, it gave you two copies. And that sounds insane to everybody that ever hears it. But what happened was everybody that bought it ended up giving it to a friend. And because you can fit two more people in a lobby, usually a third friend bought that. And then they would send it to another friend, and before you know it, you have 4 people online doing matchmaking, etc. It was a beautiful virtuous cycle. I digress from there. Over to John from BR1 Infinite.
I will I will say this. We're talking from like high level perspective. I'll give you a little tidbit of like the internals as a game studio. One of the biggest asks from our community is to add a co-op mode to V2 in BR1. And it is something that we constantly see people talking about. Honestly, when I think of like the top 3 or 4 things that people ask about of like, can we have controller support for a PC game and stuff like that. The one that comes to mind constantly is that people just really want to have a co-op online mode. So even from the side of a studio, I'm telling you that you're absolutely right on that comment.
Well said. Let's go to Wills from Stardust. Wills, do you think co-op is king, brother?
I mean, let's just have a look at all the games we've been talking about on the show so far. We've been talking about the finals. We've been talking about Helldivers, Power World. I think the real question is all of these games, as Jerry was saying, are fun to play with your friends. But any game is fun to play with your friends. I think what's key to making a co-op game successful, I'm very biased here, so I'm going to use this example, is being able to continue playing the game when your friends aren't on. Being able to not have to sync up every time you want to play the game and having alternate experience options. For a game like Destiny, that's, part and parcel of the deal. I've been getting back into Destiny after like a 3-year break for this big Final Shape campaign. And what I love about it is, me and my buddy, we do whatever the quest is on the weekend, but throughout the week, we're farming, we're doing, other little quests and tasks that we can do, and then we convene, having advanced over the course of the week in our own playtime. I think what a lot of games miss, and I think that this is something that Helldivers really missed, was, it wasn't fun to play if you weren't in voice chat with your buddies. It was, it was the same thing over and over and over again. And unless you had that social experience to back it up, the game really couldn't hold up. So that's what I think is the key here.
Some great comments from Icy. He says, should all games have a co-op? Not sure, but I do know every game should have a coop, and then tags Coop from Avalanche. He also says, every week listening to Gamified is like getting a master's degree in crypto gaming, which you love to hear, man. Thanks so much for joining us, as always, brother. Let's send it over to Knock for the last word, then we can move on.
I think maybe one of the interesting things here is that when you're playing co-op games, most of them have like somewhere between a 15 and 30-hour limit to like the story campaign, what you're playing, how long the game is. So you don't have to deal with the fallacy of like sunk cost, right? When you're playing something like Fortnite or COD, and I've put in 1,000 hours into that game, I'm never gonna play anything that is even remotely adjacent to that game because I spent so much time playing Fortnite. I spent so much money on my skins. I've created my account the way that I want it to be, and I've built up my skill set there. So playing anything else will make me worse at Fortnite. I'm never gonna play Fortnite. I'm just gonna continue to bug my friends until they play Fortnite with me. But in a co-op game, that only lasts 15 hours, that's a weekend bender. Fuck, sometimes that's a Friday night into Saturday morning. People can play that straight. So there's relatively low cost to getting hands on with a co op game. If you're not feeling it halfway through, you can really transfer a lot of the skills into another style of co op game, especially if you're talking something like Chain Together or It Takes Two or whatever the Twine game where they were like balls of yarn, but they were like little demons that was like on PlayStation a few years ago. Like these games are similar enough. They're relatively low lift in terms of how many hours you need to sink into them to beat it. You're not losing anything as you would be when you're talking about a game like Fortnite or League or Valorant, whatever your main game is. So for me, I think it's really easy for me to pick up a game on a weekend when I want to break from the main games that I play. I'll pick up a co-op game. I'll have a couple beers. You play with a buddy. It's a ton of fun. And 10 hours later, you're done the game. You're done the experience. And in a few weeks, you can pick up another one. They're relatively light to consume. They're a ton of fun. It allows you to connect with a couple of friends, and you don't quote unquote lose anything by playing that game versus your main game. I think that's part of the reason why they're so sticky, right? Whereas when you're playing the same sphere as a League of Legends, you are directly competing with League. It is thousands of hours of League means I can't play any hours in your game. Whereas with a co-op game, that's just not true. So it feels like they're a little bit easier to digest. They're lighter. They're easier to get into. And for most people who play games, an 8 to 10 hour session, especially if you're young and you're in school or you're on summer break, a 15-hour campaign is a day. And I think that's part of the reason why they do so well is because it's easy to pick up.
That's a great point, man. I think we've also kind of lost the magic of just like finishing a game a lot of the time. Like how satisfying it can be to just be done with it and then not have to worry about it taking over your entire life because now you're addicted to it and it's going to be live ops for the next 10 years, which is something I constantly live in fear of now that I'm an adult with a bunch of stuff to do. We move on though. Voodoo is being sued for supposedly fixing in game outcomes in their wagering games. What's the word for that? Voodoo, the company behind mobile apps, a ton of them, but this one in particular is called, quote, Blitz hyphen win cash, unquote, which should tell you there's already something amiss here. Summing up the complaint that they're being sued over, the company suing them is called Skills, and they allege that Voodoo falsely advertises its games as being skill based, and Voodoo is using bots to fix the outcome of in game tournaments. They also claim that the company falsely claims in its advertising that its Blitz game is only played against humans, and it also says that Voodoo claims not to profit on the outcome of any of these matches and to only be accessible to users 21 and older. To quote the complaint, all of these statements and countless others made by Voodoo, both on its mobile and application elsewhere, are false and misleading. My question for the panel, what's the word for this lawsuit? And does Web3 actually fix this whenever we can prove something? I guess maybe the bot system, maybe not if you're going that unethical with it, but we can at least put odds on chain. Curious what your guys' thoughts are. Lems, I'm tagging you in first.
Yeah, man, like hopefully we can actually use Web3 to fix this in some way, because that's why we have things on chain, and maybe we can get to the point of like ZK proof of humanity. That would be a big thing that could help with this. But we also know people like to play the games in Web3, and we know that a unique wallet is not a unique user, and it is a regular problem we deal with right now. I don't see short term how we're going to solve this, but I do think, I'm optimistic about ZK KYC or something of that form, some kind of proof of humanity that, I'm a bit of a privacy maxi, so still maintain your privacy. You're not just giving all your info to some random company and be like, please don't get hacked, bro, because we've seen so many data breaches. So some way to have it protected, but proof of humanity, and then we can actually get some unique users. And blockchain is good tech to do that when we get to that point.
Well said, Ed. Len, excuse me. Let's go to Ed Chang from Avalanche next.
WorldCoin actually solves this. But in all seriousness, I think I don't know. Going back to I think what Lem said, I think it was Lem's. But you can use VRF, right? So there's on-chain kind of randomness, but a lot of the games in Web3, like there's so much of it that's off-chain, right? And the publishers controlling all this stuff. So this feels a lot more like this is a bad actor, right? And unfortunately, we talked about bad actors or in the Web3 gaming space, it just kind of sets the difficulty to the next level harder for all of us because of public perception, regulation potentially, or certain people looking into it now. And I think a lot of that stuff happens in the mobile space. Mobile games have been around for so long now, and it's just an absolute minefield of a lot of this stuff.
It really is, especially whenever you add in wagering, 21 and over kind of stuff. It can get real messy real fast. Knock, over to you.
Yeah, I think both Ed and Lems bring up really good points, and both completely true. I also think it maybe misses the biggest problem, and the reason why Web3 doesn't solve this is because at the top, this is, it appears to be anyway, deceit directly from the actual company itself, right? This isn't a problem of whether or not there are bots in the game. This is a problem of a company saying that the game is one way, i.e., it is player versus player. We're not benefiting off of this. We're not making money from it. And in reality, it's being the exact opposite of that. So while all of the things that Ed and Lems mentioned do help help solve the problem of bots in games and bots flooding games, and some of the civil attacks that are happening within the space, all of those things can be remedied by what they brought up. But the biggest issue is the fact that it appears that Voodoo lied, or was at the worst, or at the best rather, deceitful in what is actually happening within their game and within their ecosystem. And we've been shown time and time again in Web3 that not only does Web3 not solve that, but it probably makes it better for the people who are being deceitful and scammy, and give them more opportunity to do those things. So I think it's an unfortunate situation. I think we can tackle half of the problem with Web3. The other half of the problem, at least today, probably gets significantly better for the abuser with the use of Web3.
Potentially an unfortunate reality there, man. Sad to hear it. Jerry, over to you, man.
I mean, I'm not the most forward expert on blockchain, but I do think that there's a lot of things that, we're glossing over, like VRF, right? And having provable randomness and provable odds in games, and I think that's huge. But there's a clear UX UI issue in reading blockchain data that needs to be solved. I think even for most of us, when we probably go on Etherscan, it's kind of a shit show, and you don't really know what you're looking for. And there's provable scarcity, and there's VRF and all these contracts now. 95% of us probably couldn't go look at a contract and point to you where that number is, right? But I think that good teams who have that, who want that, ethical kind of skill based or wagering, model in their game will solve that issue, and they will do very well because of that. Because people can go in and do their fucking spreadsheets that they love in Web3, and start to figure out is something worth our time or is it not, right? So I think where we're at right now, it doesn't. But does it have the potential to actually really fix some of these pain points? I think 100% yes.
Brad DeSanto, your thoughts, brother? Does anything about Web3 fix some of these issues? I'm also curious if anybody wants to chime in on the fact that Voodoo, of all people, is getting accused of this whenever Voodoo is like a massive Web2 games publisher. It's kind of shocking that they would even get close to letting something like this happen. Brad DeSanto, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Voodoo's being accused of just reads as outright fraud. And I think, if a company wants to commit fraud and deceit, they're going to find a way to do it and just obscure it. And I think Web3 and blockchain can actually help you in some ways craft a narrative that feels more legit than others. But I think unironically, I do think we're probably a ways away, but I do think blockchain and VRF and even like a DAO and validator structure, can potentially solve this when you think about audits and you think about verifying actions on chain. I think they're all the things and the components that we clown constantly because they have not worked to date. But I can imagine a system in the future where you do have VRF in randomization and in wagering that truly is legitimate, and you have a legion of validators and humans that can actually help validate those results. I think Pixel Vault and their reboot protocol is trying to do some of that with skill-based gaming. I'm excited for that side of things to evolve because we haven't really seen it come to market yet, but it does feel like it can potentially solve some of the bigger issues with gambling and wagering games, in a trustful way.
Thanks, Brian. Yap in the comments says, happy 75th. I'm a gamified listener for almost a year already. Pretty crazy. Man, that means you came on board right around where this next topic is going to come in. Reflecting on some predictions on episode number 29, if you can think back to that far away, we asked if there could be a game with 10 million players by the end of 2024. This was inspired by a quote by John Linden, the CEO of Mythical Games, saying that we would have 3 NFT games with 10 million players by the end of 2023. Even at episode 29, we were pretty damn sure that wasn't going to happen. So we actually changed the subject to be the end of 2024. And I'm curious if people think that we might be a little bit closer to that. These quotes are almost the exact quotes, slightly paraphrased just to condense them because a lot of them were really long. But I'm going to read off a few from episode 29 for you guys, and then we'll talk about the results of them a little bit. Mr. Paul Bettner from Wildcard emphasized installs and not active players. But he mentioned a million installs usually ends up with just a few hundred regular active players. Fitch from Parallel said a 0.000% chance by the end of 2023. It looks like Fitch was right on with that one. Lem says we would be lucky to have a game with 100,000 users by the end of 2023. Fitch agreed and said that number was what he was thinking, about 100K by the end of 2023. Lem's brought it back and said if we could get one game by the end of 2024 with 10 million players, that he would be pretty excited, but he was asking the panel. Fresco said, or that's Jerry now, pre-name change clearly, says one game with 10 million people is still ambitious. I think there'll be a game with that many installs, though, probably a mobile game. And I do think Mythical announced at some point that they hit 5 million installs with NFL Rivals. So they're getting close-ish, 6 months. Maybe they crank on a couple of funnels, a couple of mobile, what do they call it? Performance marketing campaigns. Maybe they're able to
Hit
get
me
there.
up.
Yeah. Paul agrees, not monthly active users, but does think that we will get to 10 million installs by the end of 2024. Push the time frame to the end of 2025 and might even be possible to hit 10 million monthly active users, he said. So if we extend 18 months from now, basically. For context, 10 million monthly active users is a top 50 Steam game. Not an exact quote, of course. Knox says 10 million monthly active users is half as popular as Valorant, which is one of the most popular games right now. Since this took place, I just have noted again, I think we've hit 5 million with Mythic Games, NFL Rivals. That one's a little bit like Web3 light, but still, we gotta claim it. My beloved panel, we're 6 months away from the end of 2024. How much more progress do you see us making? Do you think we will see 10 million installs in any game? Do you think we'll see a million monthly active users, maybe outside of Pixels, on any of the games that we have in front of us? Lems, I'll tag you in first.
Yeah, I think this is a case where it was about 12 months ago. I think this was maybe 11, 12 months ago, episode 29, we were just ambitious, like most things, we think it's going to come a little bit sooner. It's just a little bit slower. Things are a little bit slower moving. In 2023, we thought, oh, hey, there's going to be a bunch of games releasing in like early 2024. And we're starting to get there now. Like we have a lot more playable games to play, but still, most of them are not polished releases, right? They're still alphas, betas. We're getting some game loops, but they're still incomplete. So I think we got to kind of kick the can down the road a bit further, move the timeline out. I would still be impressed if we had 10 million installs by the end of the year, even if it's just on something like NFL Rivals. That would be pretty sweet. I would just be happy if we get like a million MAU by the end of 2025. So kind of downsizing those predictions from last year and trying to reel it back in a little bit. We were just being optimistic with the state of development, I think. But overall, I think we were not too bad on those predictions looking at them 12 months later.
Jerry, do you agree?
Are we counting the ton clicker games?
I guess if we are, then we blew them out of the fucking water, but I would say no.
Yeah, are we calling like real people here? Or are we talking about wallets again? I guess that's what it comes back to. It's like the number of installs is like almost like counting wallets, I guess, because it's very easy to inflate those numbers versus monthly actives.
I mean, my bias here says that we should count the clicker games because then I was right. But if we're going the just the traditional like install route, I I don't think that we have a team that like it's cool that Mythical's close. I don't know that they want to put more money into getting 4 million more installs. Right? I think that game's probably lost its momentum, and I don't think they're gonna back that up. So I don't think we make it.
Mr. Knock, tagging you in, brother. You got to have some strong thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think most game devs will tell you there aren't many games that are even prepared for remotely close to those numbers in the next 6 months. Like, infrastructure is the thing, and it is a limiting factor, and you need to make sure that you're prepared for that amount of users. And to say that somebody who's in this space today can scale up, with the exception of maybe one or two teams, to 10 million in the next 6 months is like absurd. I think it's ridiculous. Most teams aren't there on their level of development yet. They don't feel like they have enough depth within the game itself. They don't have the infrastructure in place to support those number of users. That being said, you've seen teams like Avalanche bring in a shitload of really high quality teams who I think over the course of the next 6 months will continue to build the foundation that they need to get to that number in 2025. And I think at the end of 25, this is probably something that we see one or two titles hit. But I don't think anybody is ready in 24 over the next 6 months to scale to that size. You'll probably see a couple of teams push a million over the next 6 months. I don't doubt that. I think that there are plenty of people in the space who are both prepared and have the know-how to do that. But I think most developers will tell you we're either not there yet in terms of the game and the depth and the level of polish, and we don't want 10 million people to come into the game in its current state, or we're not there yet from a technical perspective, meaning we can actually support that number of users. I think that changes very quickly in the new year, but I don't think we see that in 24 at all.
Mr. Ed Chang from Avalanche, curious what you think about these previous predictions and where we're going in the second half of 2024.
Yeah, I'm gonna riff a little bit off what Knox said, and maybe instead of saying by the end of 2024, we look at kind of the current cohort of games that are going to be coming out in the next like year or say, right? And it's basically games that have been building, right? Not games that are raising right now to launch in 2026. And I think we're all here because we believe in Web3 gaming. And I think that if you do believe in that, you got to believe that there can be a game or a studio that can make it, whether it's on Avalanche, whether it's on another chain. I think you need to have some conviction because, frankly, in my opinion, if we don't see a breakout hit from this next class or cohort, I think it's going to be rough sailing for us, kind of moving forward, because we've got billions of dollars poured in right now, and there are teams that have a lot of runway. But if you can't manufacture a hit after all these years and all this patience and all this, bull mania, you're going to end up like a zombie studio just trying to figure things out. So I got to think that it's possible. I just looked this up. The Banana Clicker game on Steam hit a peak concurrent of 900K players. So whether it's some crazy ton casual game, whether it's a browser game, whether it's, a AAA first person shooter like Off the Grid, like you got to believe that this cohort has some winners. Otherwise, we'll all be singing a different tune not too long from now.
Yeah, it's well said. I would love to hear. I don't know if you have any specific mental model for kind of what that next cohort looks like as far as the time horizon. In my mind, it kind of feels like the end of 2025. It feels like right now we're seeing a lot of alphas and betas and not really any like full-fledged releases where people go, here's the game. It either is good or it isn't. I'm curious what you would give them as far as like a timeline to kind of fit into that. Like, we're not going to be judging them too harshly until X date.
Yeah, I think that timeline's reasonable. I mean, really, is the game close to any form of some early access, play test, play to airdrop, something that people can actually get their hands on and get excited about? Otherwise, we all know how difficult game development is. We always talk about it. And then you mash that in with smart contracts and blockchain and the immutability of that, and it just makes for a very difficult equation. So all these, even the games that are coming out that we're really excited about are pretty much all delayed. I can't think of one hyped Web3 game that is delivered early or like even on time because this stuff is difficult. So I think you can give it you can expand out that timeline, let's say to the end of next year, but it's got to be a game, like I said, that's like in early access now or is doing some form of closed play testing. Because there's a lot of other things that they're coordinating, even just beyond the game release itself.
Yeah, great points across the board. Thanks there, Ed. Brian DeSanto, over to you, brother.
I'm with Ed and Knock. I don't think the 10 million install number is this unicorn that's so impossible to achieve. I think it ultimately is a choice that teams have to make. When do you want to turn user acquisition on and when do you want to spend to hit that, especially on mobile? I just don't think the games or the infrastructure are there to support that. If you're going to spend that kind of money, you need a game that's fully flushed out, it's capable of retaining, it can monetize effectively. And if you can't do those things confidently, you have no business spending anywhere near that much money to push for those numbers. I even look at a game like Pirate Nation, who I would argue is probably as far on the side of sophistication as any other team in this space. They have hour-long waits to get into the game. You look at Fableborn, which is crushing their play to airdrop. Their servers have gone down. You've seen it with our game, King of Destiny. With 500,000 installs. So I think the infrastructure has to catch up to support that amount of load to build the games that we all want to build. And I just don't think the tech is there yet. That said, I think come late 25, early 26, I think we'll see the tech take leaps and bounds. I think we'll see games, get out of their MVP states, out of their vertical slices, and have fully formed loops and fully formed content. So I think it's still a bit early. We're seeing, games that have been building for 2+ years begin to mature. But the reality is, 2 years is not a long time to build a killer game. You look at a game like Monopoly Go, I think it was in development for 7 years before, it started really monetizing and growing. So again, we're still in our infancy, but we're seeing signs of life. I think it's probably still premature, but super bullish on the class of games that are starting to launch tokens, have play to airdrops, because I do think we will have one or two, if not more, that are really crushing it come late 25, early 26.
Man, something about the way that Brian puts things always just gets me in my optimistic energy. Appreciate you, man. That was great. We're gonna move on to something a little bit more lighthearted. Apparently, Japan has only just stopped using floppy disks. The Japanese government stopped after decades, decades after their heyday. The digital agency behind Japan says they have quote unquote won the war on floppy disks and finally moved its systems online. So my question for the panel is, what is the word for Japan just now stopping to use this technology that, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't been relevant in a good 20 years or so? I know Lems wants to cook on this one.
Embarrassing. Shout out to Phil also for finding this article, because it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that someone is still using floppy disks. We're in 2024. When did we stop using floppy disks everywhere? It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that people would still use that in this day and age. Hey, maybe I'm missing something and it was some super high security thing and you keep everything off the internet and you keep it on, 10 million floppy disks that you have stored, and because you can't store that much on them because the data is so small. But yeah, pretty embarrassing, I feel like, unless someone can tell me why I'm way off the mark.
Knock, over to you to tell Lems why he's wrong and floppy disks are the meta.
Oh, you're gonna be so disappointed. My only piece of insight here is that there are probably like a sizable portion of the viewers of this show right now who don't even know what the fuck we're talking about. Floppy disks like died before the year 2000. I'm sure of it. Like I don't remember this. You used to get them in like fucking cereal boxes, and then they moved up to like CD-ROMs. But you would get like video games in a box of cereal on a floppy disk. It was like Frogger and all kinds of shit. Yeah, I have no real intelligent take here other than yeah, I'm sure that most of the people listening to this don't even know what we're talking about.
Jerry, over to you.
Um, that's insane, and I think Web3 actually fixes this because, like, if you guys, I mean, I'm like Sam, Knock, and I are all like the same age, and I don't really know what the fuck a floppy disk even is. I mean, I know like my dad had them and stuff, but I do know that they don't hold that much shit on them compared to like a modern flash drive or anything. So somewhere in Japan, there's had to be a company that was fucking pumping out floppy disks because you can put like 3 files on them, and the country is fucking running off this infrastructure, right? Like, we're talking about gaming infrastructure. I mean, this whole government is held up. It's a house of cards, dude. What are we talking about? And you know, I just think like, hey, dude, if it was all on chain, somebody'd be like, what's this $9 million we're spending a year on this fucking obscure like tech manufacturer? Oh, they're making floppy disks. What the fuck are we doing here, right? And one day I hope that we have the level of transparency in this world that we know that people are still using floppy disks. So those people deserve to be shamed. Like, that is shameful, dude. That's unbelievable. I wasn't expecting this topic, and I'm never going to Japan anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can hold 2 megabytes if I remember correctly. Like, it is such a minuscule amount, so they probably had stacks and stacks of them. Like, that's where all their real estate
Yeah,
was taken from.
yeah, dude. Like, imagine just the level of storage it took to put 45,000 floppy disks on, in some random filing cabinet somewhere in like some back office.
Fawn in the comments says, "What the fuck are these old men talking about?" And then a bunch of people are expecting you to make some incredible floppy disk jokes, Jerry. So don't let the people down. It might be too late though, because we're gonna move on. Top games of June from Games GG. They had them listed out as the Wanderers, the Beacon, Moonfrost, Shardbound, and Pirate Nation. Who's your pick for the winner of the month if you had to pick somebody from that list or somebody that's not on that list? And if you had to add one that isn't on the list, who might you add? Again, the Wanderers, the Beacon, Moonfrost, Shardbound, and Pirate Nation are the 5 that they had listed off. I also want to give a shout out to Games GG. They set up a quest for us for this episode of Gamified. Gamified 75 is the code word if you're joining us from Games GG. Thanks so much for checking it out. We're here same time, same place every single week. And if you want to show up on Spotify as well, we have Gamified and Simplified on Spotify under the Gamified banner. Jerry, tagging you in first, man. Top games of June. Who you like? Who you taking off? Who you adding? All the above.
Yeah, I think it is a clear highlight for me in that list. All those teams are incredible, and I genuinely do believe so. But I think Pirate Nation stands out above the rest of them because we've seen them handle multiple aspects or multiple parts of their overall launch. Right, um, they're crushing their user numbers. You can't play the game right now because you have to sit in a 2-hour queue because so many people are trying to play it. They crushed their token launch. I think that's a model that people should follow. The game is fun. I play it every day. I don't miss a day. It's a simple game loop. I don't know why I'm so hooked on it, but I do play it every single day. So I think they're really a team that we need to highlight more in the incredible shit that they're doing. And it's fully on chain, which I actually wasn't a big believer in until very recently, and now I'm kind of all in. If I had to put one on, I mean, no question, it's Fableborn. I was up until like 4 a.m. and I feel like I'm off my game on this panel today, and it's their fault because I couldn't put my phone down last night when I was trying to go to sleep. The game's fucking incredible, and I think that's definitely we're talking about is there a game that can get to that 1 million or 10 million mark? There's your game right there.
Was Fableborn even playable in June though? You're breaking the rules of the game, Jerry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think there is no doubt that Fableborn will be on that list in July, but we are a little bit behind on this topic. Yeah, this is the top games of June. So Wanderers, The Beacon, Moonfrost, Shardbound, Pirate Nation, just to refresh it. But agree completely, Fableborn has been absolutely crushing it. Ed Chang, I'm tagging you in from Avalanche next.
I'm glad Jerry got spanked before me because I was gonna add Fableborn in there. But
yeah, I'm
out
sorry,
of
Lems.
those, I think I agree on the Pirate Nation part. I think there's something about when you see all these seasoned vets who just cooked in Web 2, and these guys are obviously OG Zynga developers, and you get to see masters at work. So very impressive. Obviously, some bullish downtime for them where you had to actually waitlist to actually get on chain, but that's a whole another story there. You know, if I could, I would add off the grid. I know it's not publicly playable, and their requirements have sometimes people said are too strict. In fact, my gaming PC doesn't even qualify to get in the playtest. But I have not seen a game with this, strong universal positive feedback, and not just from the Web3 crowd, but in Web2. And the team has been building for so long. We've got we've got a different viewpoint than I think the public, but I'm so excited for more and more people to get added to this game, and so I throw them on there alongside kind of the other five there.
Yeah, that's a great one, Ed. I would say I agree completely. It's absolutely insane to me. I still haven't had a chance to play. I actually just got into the beta, so this weekend I'll be able to for the first time. But again, I would reiterate, I don't think I've seen a single person say a bad thing about it yet, which is absolutely bananas for any game, let alone a Web3 game. So that has me really excited. That's a great potential addition there. Knock, I'm tagging you in.
Well, Ed beat me to both the Fableborn joke and the off the grid mention. So I'm just gonna repeat most of what he just said. One, it should be Fableborn. I know it wasn't available, but it is something that has absolutely consumed most of my day. Some sicko has like a 6-minute timer on like the 10 wave raid thing, which just pisses me right the fuck off because that's not possible. But anyway, great game. If you haven't already, download it, play it. I think Pirate Nation is the winner here, the clear winner for the month of June for me. That is a team who just get it. They understand this space. They've taken non-conventional routes at pretty much every single turn. I remember having a conversation with them a couple of years ago and thinking, it's pretty bold to go the path that they wanted to go, and it's worked out. Right? They are a team that just understand how to build games. They really get it. We've had a couple of them on Gamified and Unsimplified over the last little while, and every time they speak, Adam or anybody else from that team, you just realize like you're talking to somebody who really deeply understands gaming. And then you throw on the fact that they are ingrained in the Web3 ecosystem. It's a recipe for success. So Pirate Nation, definitely one of the teams out there that is doing incredible things. And then I just wanted to like shout out Shardbound. I don't know if you're a fan of that genre of game or if you've ever even seen it. It looks so fucking good. It's a really fun genre of game. I tend to play a lot of these. It's like a tactical movement, like tile based, turn based game. So definitely not for everybody. I don't think a lot of people have talked about it in the space. I believe it's on IMX. But it's the type of game that gets me excited, looks great. That's a team that seems to be doing really well for themselves. I haven't played that game in a while, but
It's
yeah,
like a
definitely
Fire
something to look
Emblem,
out.
isn't it?
It's kind of like I would say it's Fire Emblem meets almost like For the King if you've played that game. In the way that it's like a campaign-y style thing. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, really cool game. Has a card selection element into it as well. Really interesting title.
Yeah, great shout out there. I haven't had a chance to play it, but they were in my DMs giving me an access code, so I'll be sure to check it out. I do like that kind of game if it scratches the itch just right. It's like the kind of genre I can get into if it's like perfect, but if it's not perfect, I'm not super into it. So we'll see if they're able to cross the threshold there. I do want to send it over to Brian DeSanto, and since I know he won't be able to plug his own game, I'm going to plug it for him. I think King of Destiny should be on this list personally. Crossed 500,000 downloads. It's, again, hyper casual, not necessarily the type of thing I would play in my free time personally, but I can see that the bones of the game are like S tier in quality, and I think that they have a real shot at crossing a lot of different devices over the next couple of years. Brian DeSanto, over to you. Who you got out of this list? Wanderers, Beacon, Moonfrost, Shardbound, Pirate Nation. Who's your winner of June?
I'm gonna swerve, and I agree with everybody. I mean, it's hard to dispute any of those teams, all S tier, putting on a masterclass in different ways. But I'm gonna shout out the Beacon because they basically threw egg on everybody on this panel's face who said they
Whoa.
wouldn't. You know it, Jerry. But everyone said they couldn't mint out an 11K collection in this market, and they did in spades, and it flew. And I think to do that. Also, just put on a masterclass when it comes to pulling together a play to airdrop, on the back of content. Just really impressive for a team that's been building for years. So I think have to give them flowers, doing something unconventional, doing something different, and just executing at a very high level. And even just the fact that we're having this conversation that 8 or 9 games and teams are executing at a high level with quality product in 1 month, is such a leap from where we were even a year ago. So I think the fact that we're choosing from this many games and teams, almost feels like we're spoiled, and I think we're really turning a corner.
Oh, feels so good to be on this side of actually having playable games and people being like, multiple people deserve it instead of everybody being like, nobody deserves it. Fuck, we've come so far, guys. In 75 episodes. It feels so good, man. Lems, over to you.
All right, shout out to Bry for remembering for us to rag on, especially Knock, because Knock was super bearish on the Beacon, and I told him I would keep the receipts and then he decided to ghost us on the next episode because he didn't want to come and face the shame. And so thanks for the reminder, Bry, there that we can rag on Knock for this one. Yeah, shout out Moonfrost for this one. I think Moonfrost did a great job. It was a closed beta or alpha, I should say. So it was actually hard for people to get into. You had to apply, but I know a bunch of the Wolves were playing. I got to jump in and play myself. Shout out to Jace. He did a really good job on the whole activation with their first alpha, and they just announced they got a mint coming up in the next while. At least they're giving out whitelist spots from the players, which is really cool as well. They didn't do any collabs or anything. They're just giving the whitelist for their mint out strictly to the players of their game, which again is really cool to see for their Genesis collection. So I don't really have one to sub out. Again, I'll echo all the praise for Fableborn, but I won't try and sub it in because it's a July game, guys. It's coming for July, and something oh baby card if you haven't heard of that one before, something. But yeah, I think that's about all I got. Shout out Moonfrost and great job on that.
Will's from Stardust tagging you in, brother.
Yeah, everyone's said everything there is to say about all the amazing games that made the top 5 this month, and echoing all of those sentiments because there are so many great teams out here. I think a game that is flying under the radar and for me had a huge month in June is Moonray. It's kind of like a Destiny PvP looking type game, and I've been lucky enough to be in contact with the team for a couple of years now. And they are building some amazing stuff over there. And it's been so cool to see all of that come to fruition. They're doing comics. They're doing PvP sessions. They're doing PvE. They did NFT drops all the way back in the day. And now those are actually, coming in with rewards. It's really, really cool to see what they're doing. And they're a super experienced team. So very excited to see where they go from here. So I would put June as a big month for Moonray.
Yeah, shout out to Moonray. I think they might have actually been on Games GG's top 5 list back in May. I can't remember, and I'm not sure if they do back-to-back months, but still, nonetheless, I know Icy also has been doing regular tournaments. If anybody's trying to get into Moonray, highly recommend getting into the Web3 Gamer Discord and joining for those tournaments. You can win a little bit of USDC, but Moonray in particular is a game that is amazing with friends. And so I highly recommend booting up with a bunch of people all in the Discord that can scream and get excited with you, because that's whenever the game really shines, in my opinion. We're going to move on to the MVP of the episode. Whoever wins gets 60 seconds to bring up a topic that's important to them, plug whatever they're working on, shill whatever they want to do, just 60 seconds. I'm going to send it over to Brian DeSanto to nominate the first MVP of the panel.
Oh, dude, my man. I'm gonna throw it. It's back to what I started with, but I'm gonna throw it to Lems, minting out Killer day today for the ETH Lizards. You're my man. Let's get it.
Lems getting some love. Lems, I'm sending it to you. Who you picking for your MVP, brother?
Well, now it just seems fixed because I was just going to shout out Bry. We haven't had him on the show in a while, and it was like good to have you back. But now it seems like I'm just doing it because he struck my ego. But I was actually genuinely going to pick Bry, and we need you back on the show more regularly. Love hearing what you got going on.
Wow, the collusion is real. But yeah, Brian's enthusiasm, like I said earlier, always gets me going, gets me excited. Jerry, tagging you in, man. Who you got?
I really liked what Knock had to say about infrastructure and how teams aren't ready to scale, and I thought that was very smart take. But he could not face me after disagreeing with me about the beacon last week. So out of principle, I cannot vote for him. I will vote for, and I almost don't want to vote for Brian because he forgot that I called the beacon minting out. But I will vote for Brian because it's got to be hard when you're that good looking, you're that smart, you're that charismatic. You know, the guy's got it all. He can be MVP.
Jesus, we've dissolved into madness towards
Jesus. I want to give it back now.
the Knock, over to you. Who you got for MVP, brother?
Yeah, I got to clear my name here first. I said, and I quote, I think they can probably do 1 to a million, 1 to 1.5 million. I don't think they can hit 3, but I hope that they do. Just to be sure. Also, I had fucking bronchitis. You can still hear it. I didn't dodge anybody. I was just dying. All right. Bry DeSanto, the obvious winner of the episode. He crushed it, man. It's been too long since he's been on. Ton of fun.
John from BR1 Infinite, who you picking as your MVP of the panel?
I got to give it to Jerry, man. Love your energy. Love what you've got to say. Yeah, love you, bro.
Oh, thanks. I love you too.
Will's from Stardust. Who you got?
I'm giving it to the wow horse and slash spitting on everyone else in the panel. But if that doesn't count, I'll give it to Bry because he had a phenomenal day.
You love to hear it. Shout out to the wow horse. I refuse to buy that fucking thing. Ed Chang, who you got?
Just like in California, I don't think my vote really counts at this point, but I'm going to go with Bry as well. Man is extremely eloquent, very knowledgeable, impressed with his knowledge and answers. So congrats, Bry.
All right. And last but not least, Lady Trader, thanks for joining us today. Over to you. Who you got for your MVP?
Oh goodness, thank you so much for having me up here. Lems, for sure. What an awesome performance for the Liz or Eat Lizards Launchpad Mint. I mean, it was great. Really looking forward to everything that you guys are building. My community went pretty heavy on it. They're still buying it off of the secondary market. We just cannot stop buying. I don't even know how many I bought across all of my wallets. So super excited and looking forward to all of the Twitter spaces that you guys have planned for this month.
Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate that. And over to Brian DeSanto, our MVP of the episode. Great to have you back yet again, brother. Take 60 seconds, chill, whatever you'd like, my man.
Dude, it's been too long, but it actually doesn't feel as long because I've been chatting with you, Knock, Jerry, kind of on the side about some other things, which has been fun. But appreciate you guys having me back. Congrats on 75, Sam. 3/4 of the way to a century. So job well done. I will be here with you on Christmas Day and New Year's. Didn't forget that. But I guess big things in our world. King of Destiny, our mobile game, just hit 500,000 installs. I know casual, hyper casual doesn't always feel sexy or get the big headlines of some other genres, but we're chugging away and bringing moms everywhere on chain, whether they know it or not. So we're excited about some big tech integrations, smart wallets, things like that happening behind the scenes. And then I think really the bigger news that probably people care more about is the launch of Godcoin in the coming months. So I think the alpha is hook up to the Valhalla Foundation. It takes 30 seconds. If you hold, I think we're up to 69 partners that have different NFTs. If you hold any of them, you'll get instant points that'll get you some rewards and maybe an airdrop in the near future. So it's the easiest campaign you'll be a part of. It's basically a Web3 gaming leaderboard. So do that, and I think you'll be happy in a little bit of time.
You love to hear it. Best of luck with everything you guys are cooking over there. We love the Infinigods team. And as we close out another epic episode of Gamified, let's throw a snowball-sized shout out to the colossal force of nature called Avalanche. Avalanche isn't just any blockchain, it's a cataclysmic cascade of cutting-edge technology, the summit of speed and scalability. This is where gaming legends are forged, with titans like Konami solo leveling off the grid and MapleStory all sculpting their own chains on this unstoppable platform. And the avalanche of excitement continues with RoboKaiden launching on Elixir. This isn't just a game release, it's a seismic shift in the gaming landscape. Thank you to Avalanche for being the official blockchain of Gamified. Reload, regroup, and rally round as we now salute Shrapnel, the strategic superstar spearheading the pulse of Web3 gaming. They are the architects of your arenas, the guardian of your gameplay, our sponsors, and the official game of Gamified. If you're looking to get involved, there's no time like the present. Shrapnel continues to add more opportunities to engage, earn, and be rewarded. Jump into the Discord and learn more about the quests, lunatics, metal, mercury, and ecosystem rewards. Absolutely love you guys. And before we drift into the digital dusk, let's shine a cosmic spotlight on Stardust, the galactic backbone of Gamified. Don't miss their latest star-studded innovation, Stardust groundbreaking user acquisition tool. Stardust is pulling in more gamers than a supermassive black hole, capturing hearts and handles at a cost so low it might as well be space debris. They're not just shooting for the stars, they're aiming for the entire galaxy by nailing the perfect players for your platform with precision, blasting your success into a whole new universe. A big cosmic sized thank you to our sponsor, Stardust, for being the official infrastructure of Gamified. And of course, to each and every one of my amazing panelists and listeners out there, I appreciate you guys so tremendously much. Thank you so much for 75 episodes. A little bit of a crazy panel today, especially with ETHCC happening. A lot of people across the pond right now traveling, but we'll be back in our normal way next week, same time, same place, 4 p.m. Eastern. And of course, if you want to listen to any previous episodes, catch us on Spotify under Gamified. Thank you so much to the panelists. Jerry, we had John join us from BR1 Infinite, Lady Trader, Ed Chang from Avalanche, Mr. Knock from Magic Eden, Brad DeSanto from Infinigods, Wills from Stardust, Lems, of course, from the ETH Lizards. Congrats again on the Mint DAO, brother, and the Wolves DAO, always riding with us as well. We'll see you guys next week, 4 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Gamified. And if you can't wait that long, join us on Monday for Simplified at the same time. Love you guys. We'll see you there.